So here we go, one more game left on what has been a brilliant Premiership season. The final, Northampton against Bath tomorrow at Twickenham. I'm going to be there and I cannot wait because it's been a great season and I think we could get a great final as well. Welcome back to the channel. The comment section is where you can have your say on this game and how you see it going. A final that I think could genuinely go either way between two top quality teams. So let me know. Whilst you're here as well, like the video and subscribe to the channel. But I want to talk about a few different things in this video in terms of previewing the game. And one of my top line thoughts on it is take your shot. For both of these sides, take this opportunity. Because you don't know when it's next going to come around. You think about Bath, and it's been 9 years since they last got to a final. For Northampton, what is it, 10 years? 10 years since they last won it. They've only been in 3 Premiership finals as it is. And as I say, last won it a decade ago. I feel like sometimes we almost got used to seeing Saracens there every single year, or Leicester Tigers before them, or even that period where it was Exeter, the kind of Exeter-Saracens rivalry year after year after year. But actually often these chances do not come around too regularly. And it is so important that you take your chance because there are plenty of teams and plenty of fan bases, some of you may be watching this video, that will be able to tell you sometimes it doesn't go your way on the day and then you're waiting a long time before your team is able to get back there and give themselves a chance of winning silverware. So take your shot, take your opportunity. Easier said than done, but I think it's so pivotal in these matches. As for the game itself, it's one of those things, you could talk about so many different elements of this matchup. First against second in the league, the two best teams, the two most all-round teams as well in terms of teams that can attack, but teams that are good defensively and have a good set piece as well. I think for me, that's been one of the features of the Premiership this year. Teams have needed to be more of an all-court team perhaps than previous years where sides have got away with being really good at a certain thing and that's been able to see them through into the final. I don't think that is the case. So there are matchups all over the field. In terms of the team news, many of you would have seen it by now. Both sides going unchanged and both sides going with a 6-2 split on the bench as well. And we could talk about the halfbacks. I mean, that is a great narrative, isn't it? In terms of the two best scrum halves in England, certainly the two form ones in Ben Spencer and Alex Mitchell. Two fantastic fly halves as well in Finn Russell and Finn Smith, the two Finns. That's going to be an area that I think a lot of people look at. But you could talk about the back rows. We could talk about Courtney Laws and the fact that he's playing his last game for Northampton and what a way to bow out with silverware. And not to forget Lewis Ludlam, Alex Waller, a number of players that are departing. But I suppose for me, when we look at the game and you look at these two teams, we talk about their attacking games a lot, which for Northampton, that has been the case for a little while. For Bath, I think particularly this year, with Finn Russell coming into the team, has taken their attacking game up a couple of levels. But I think it's the breakdown here. You look at both semi-finals, the breakdown was absolutely massive. I know Bath, I saw some of the quotes from their media duties earlier this week, spoke about it quite a lot. And it was such a competitive area against Sale, and likewise for Northampton, their work at the breakdown has been pivotal for what they've tried to do this year. Because both sides want quick ball, and a good platform for both of those attacks that I talk about is just so key that I think that's going to be an area that both teams really target. And so maybe it is going to be a case of who gets on top in that area, who can be the biggest nuisance, who can cause the most problems, are going to be the side that find it easier to get a foothold in this game. But the flip side of that, when I was thinking about this and I was thinking about the breakdown, and I still stand by the fact that the breakdown is going to be key, maybe because of the semi-finals we saw, maybe because both sides know the fact that the breakdown is so important, they're both going to go at it so hard that they could almost end up cancelling each other out. I think that's a very real possibility. And if that is the case, maybe rather than it purely being about the breakdown, it will end up being about the team that is able to be the most effective even when they get slow ball, or even when the game isn't necessarily going exactly how they would want it to in terms of being able to launch their attack. What other areas of their game are strong enough to be able to put them in positions to win it? which for Northampton against Sarries you would say is the scrum. There are different areas like that, whether it's the kicking game, the scrum, all those sorts of things that could end up being the difference if the breakdown does end up being like trench warfare and either side not able to really get the ascendancy. But I think it will be hugely competitive, and actually the early stages of the game I think will reveal a lot in terms of both teams' approaches to that area. Another area that is worth mentioning, and I said about it there, is scrums. Because who would have thought, if we wound the clocks back 12 months, and I would have told you that Northampton and Bath would be booking themselves a spot in the Premiership final off the back of a dominant set piece and dominant scrum, against Saracens and against Sale as well in particular, getting it over on those teams. For Northampton, it was huge. So how good is their scrum? Because I have seen some people suggest that while Sarries are no mugs at scrum time, they're not quite as dominant as they once were. And likewise for Bath, I thought they did a great job, up front in particular, but their scrum was decent against a pretty meaty Sale pack. So what happens in that area of the game, again, is going to be something, those first couple of scrums, I think are going to be quite enlightening, really. But it is a brilliant matchup. It is, it's often you say it, you want the first and second best teams, but I think particularly because of how all-round these teams are is what makes it such an intriguing final. I think they have the ability to hurt one another in multiple different ways, and what areas of their game they're able to be successful at is going to be key. The other thing that I wanted to mention is actually the fact that Twickenham is sold out, which you would have thought, for the most part, we should always have this. It's the Premiership final, but it's the first time in a decade that there is not a spare seat in the house, and it is a vast improvement on the final last year between Saracens and Sale, which was about 60,000. And look, on one hand, I think the size of the fan bases for Northampton and Bath are very different to that of Saracens and Sale. That is a factor, but actually I think this is a real reflection of the health of the club game in how good it has been this year. There are still issues in the club game, I know that. They aren't out of the woods, the financial problems are there. Losing big name England stars like Courtney Laws to France. There are problems, but actually I think this is a real sign that the Premiership is back and that it is on the right track. There is still a way to go. But you think about this season, you think about the fact that we had 7 teams in the running to try and get into the top 4. You think about the semi-finals we had last weekend, where normally you get to the semi-final stage and you try and build up a narrative, but you suspect it's going to be 2 quite one-sided semi-finals. Whilst we had 2 home teams once again winning in Saints and Bath, it wasn't as one-sided as previous years. We had 2 really good and engaging semi-finals, and now we have a sold-out Twickenham as well. I think we are turning a corner, and I think it is a reflection of how good the rugby is on the pitch that is driving people to the stands, of wanting to get themselves a ticket for this game. The club game is not perfect, but actually I think it's in pretty good health, particularly when you consider where it was kind of a year ago, 18 months ago, clubs going bust, 60,000 at Twickenham. I think it's come quite a long way in a short space of time, and let's hope it keeps moving in that direction, because I think that is really, really key as well. So those are my thoughts. What are yours? And I suppose, most importantly, who's going to win the game? I should finish off with a prediction. As I said, I think it genuinely could go either way. I give the edge to Northampton because I just think they've been the best team all year. And the obvious comeback at me there is it's a one-off game, it's a final, it doesn't matter. But I think Saints have showed their quality. I think some of those results in the Champions Cup as well reveal something about them, that they have an edge, they have an ability to get over the winning post, get past the winning post in matches that are really tricky. In particular, that game against Munster in Thomond Park, where they had a player sent off in the first half. It was an absolute downpour, and they were able to see that game out. There's been various moments like that in this season, which for me say that Northampton are going to do it. But what do you reckon? Or could it be Bath? Bath haven't won an English title since 1996, which is bonkers when you consider how during most of the 90s they were the dominant team, the dominant force in English rugby, which goes back to the point I started on. Maybe that's a good point to finish. Take your shot. You do not know when this opportunity is going to come around again. Can't wait to be there at Twickenham. Let me know as well if you're going. If you're going to Twickenham, then enjoy the occasion. Hopefully it's going to be an absolute humdinger of a matchup. Comment down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.